Away all the insanity of Keith Moon and just listen to the drums, he's irreplaceable.
London, September 7th, 1978. It's 3:30 p.m. and Keith Moon is still dead to the world. Earlier in the day, he took several handfuls of Heminevrin, an alcohol withdrawal medication, and he's been asleep ever since.
I woke up. It was the afternoon. I went into the bedroom, and it was this strange feeling when I came into the bedroom because I couldn't hear him breathing. It was just like a silence that was like lead heavy. And I could just see Keith with his left arm hanging over the side like that on his tummy. And right there and then I knew something was wrong. So I just darted in there, flew on top of him, turned him around, and I just went into panic.
Not knowing what to do, she calls the doctor who prescribed the drugs. At 5 p.m, both the ambulance and the doctor arrive to discover that Moon has suffered cardiac arrest.
They try and restart his heart.
It's not working!
It's all to no avail, and Keith is very clearly dead and probably has been for a few hours.
And they put a blanket over him and carried him out. He was gone.
At 5:50 p.m, September 7th, 1978, Keith Moon, the greatest rock drummer of his generation, is pronounced dead.
They'd been expecting it for years, but it still came as a shock. Partly because he'd calmed down and was attempting to resolve his drinking problem.
They announced the death of Keith Moon, who died from a drug overdose. And I thought, someone's winding somebody up here.
Everyone thought it was actually a huge practical joke, being Keith. At the funeral, was a doctor, he said, he fully expected Keith to jump out of the coffin and go, ha, fortune.
But unfortunately, it was no joke. An autopsy 2 weeks later concludes that Moon had 26 undissolved Heminevrin tablets in his stomach.
Was Keith knowledgeable of how many pills he was taking that night? Did he know that he was taking way more than was sensible, way more than the limit? We just will never, ever know.
I think people who knew him well were surprised that he lived as long as he did. He made it longer than Hendrix or Joplin or Brian Jones or Jim Morrison. He made it 4 more years. So that was pretty surprising that he actually lived as long as he did. But of course it's sad, you know, when somebody that huge, that bombastic, that alive is no longer on the planet.
About 10 days before he died, Keith, out of the blue, phoned me up and said, I want you to write my life story. So I go, really? What, yeah, why? Why did he want to write his life story? And then, you know, 10 days later, he was dead. I did find that very strange.
The thing with Keith is everybody loved Keith. I mean, they could get fed up with him, but everybody loved him. The Who loved him, his wife loved him, his bodyguard, people who looked after him, you know, had to look after him, really all loved him, and yet they could never really convince Keith of this. They could never really convince Keith that it was all right, that the world loved him, and that he didn't have to keep trying to prove himself.
Everyone knows him as Moon the Loon, but what he's left is a legacy of drumming, of the drumming technique. That, to me, God rest his soul, is what is left.
If you take away all the insanity of Keith Moon and just listen to the drums, he's irreplaceable.
Kenny Jones, one of the last people to see Keith Moon alive, would go on to replace him as the new drummer for The Who. Ironically, on the cover of his last album with The Who, Keith Moon is shown sitting on a chair bearing the words, "Not to be taken away."
Well, I lost the man I loved, of course. The Who lost the best drummer ever. The world lost a character that can't be replaced. Yeah, gosh, no, he was just amazing.